Yes, Lord, folks. Yes, Lord. This is Who Did You Boycott today. I haven't done a live broadcast in a while, but lo and behold, I had to stop in my tracks today and divert from my other tasks to address this sorry human being that's in my title. His name is DJ Beats. Yes, Lord. The Lord put me in the right place at the right time to catch his Twitter space. Yes, he did. I got to thank the good Lord for that, because I could have been working on something else and would have missed it altogether. But it wasn't meant to be. It was not meant to be. The Heavenly Father made sure that I came across his Twitter space today. And let me go to my Twitter site right quick and grab some little notes here. Okay, let me see here. Just give me a second or two. I'm just doing a little bit of copying and pasting so that I can make sure that I get this information correctly, word for word. I don't want to miss one word of it. So I'm going to make sure that I copy and paste and quote it correctly. I'm going to quote it correctly. And so this is the words of the little small brain of DJ Beats. The title of his space was "The Black Community is Fucked Up. Our Elders to Blame. Traitors." Well. See, folks, we're at that day that was bound to come. You are witnessing the day that was bound to come. That folks were going to wake up one day. They were going to wake up one day, and they were going to look in that mirror, and they were going to look around them and see all the destruction and see all the attacks of their environment, of the enemy. They was going to have to face that one day, sooner or later. They were going to have to wake up and face, looking around at all the different ways that America is attacking you every second of the day. That does not include the inside psyops and sellouts and scammers and hustlers and every other name that you can come up with. Let us say that one more time. Let us say that one more time. It was bound to be that day when you finally woke up and you looked around and you started to be able to point out some of the different ways of the environment that you live in, that America has put things in place to attack you, to harm you, to murder you. It's a rude awakening. It really is a rude awakening. It can literally take you out. You could, once that day come and that moment finally hit you, when that moment finally hit you, you could possibly kill over. It's that traumatic. I mean, it's really that traumatic that if you're darn lucky if you don't kill over. Once that light bulb really goes off and you start to really be able to identify and halfway understand all the different ways that America has been attacking your behind from the very day that you took your first breath. From the very day that you took your first breath. If you were blessed into the world, you were blessed into the world by the Heavenly Father, and you took that first breath, you were birthed into a hostile environment, a very, very hostile environment, a very, very evil environment, a very, very terrorizing environment, terrorizing environment. That's why it was just so ironic when the folks doing 9/11, they was waking up, saying out their mouth that America has been attacked by terrorists. America was being attacked by terrorists on 9/11. For those of us who can remember 9/11, I want to tell you, my memory is as follows. I was sitting in the bedroom, and I was working on my computer, and I was looking up at the TV from time to time. I was looking up at the TV from time to time. I really wasn't paying attention to what was playing on the TV, but every once in a while, I would look up from my computer. And as I looked up, and I think I had the volume up a little bit, and then I remember seeing, the first things that I remember seeing, I'm sure it probably was a replay. I'm sure I did not see it initially when it took place. But what I remember is the airplane headed for the first tower. And I'm just sitting there just stunned. I'm just sitting there stunned because I can plainly see that the airplane is headed straight for the tower. And it crashed into the tower about midway. I mean, I remember that part clearly. It did not hit at the top. It did not crash it kind of at the top or crash kind of at the bottom. No, it crashed. It crashed kind of right in the middle. Then shortly later, the second airplane hit the tower. Now, I'm going to tell you honestly, I don't remember seeing the second airplane. I don't have a memory of it. Maybe when I watched the TV that day, both what I was watching was one plane and then a second plane. I can't tell you that. All I can tell you is that from what I could make sense of was that first plane, that first airplane, I seen it crash in the middle. Now, as far as the second airplane, I can't tell you for sure how the second airplane crash took place. So that's my memory. That is my clear memory of 9/11. And then folks woke up saying America is being attacked, terrorists are attacking America. And then you know what I started thinking to myself? America has been terrorizing my life since I came into the world. That's the first thought that went through my head, was when I heard all these folks talking on the TV, and they constantly kept saying America is being attacked by terrorists. And then I kept thinking, and I just kept thinking, and I just kept thinking, I have been terrorized by America since I came into the world. That's the connection that my brain went to. My little brain was sitting there listening, and the first thought that went through my mind was that, Aquilin, you have been terrorized since you came into the world. And now I am here today in present day time. I'm physically there in present day time, and folks are really upset about America being attacked by terrorists. But I had to go back and relive my trauma. I had to personally go back and relive my trauma of my lived experience of being in an environment that terrorized me. They terrorized me because of my skin color. I simply was born with brown skin. And so as I grew up and got older and older and older and started going around in the world that I was living in, I started remembering how folks looked at me when I walked into certain stores and walked around certain places, how I was personally looked at. I remember going into stores and the cashier did not want to touch my hand. The cashier did not want to touch my hand because I was paying for my items that I had purchased, and I had to pull out dollars and change. And the cashier, who was Caucasian, or whatever her ethnicity was, or her or him, on a regular basis, the cashier did not want to touch my hand. And sometimes some of them would have the audacity to try to wait on the person behind me. Now, I'm brown skinned, and the person behind me is what they call Caucasian. So the cashier would take the liberty to call the person behind me. And you know me, I had to open my little mouth and tell them right away, I'm next. The memory just floods back to me as I'm talking. I just simply opened my little mouth and told that sorry human being, I am next, and I was very loud. I was very loud. The whole store could hear me. So I guess, now that I'm sitting here talking to you folks, I guess that's when I can really start remembering when I started talking loud. I had never really thought about it till just now. Because I know how folks on Twitter land constantly ask me why I'm talking loud. Now, as I sit here going over that in my memory, that is one of the memories that I have where I had to talk loud. I remember opening my little mouth and being very, very loud. The other time was when I was in the military and I had to go off on my first sergeant. And then, of course, in my family, growing up with my brothers and sisters, I guess that really was where it started at. I'm going to be frankly honest about it. It had to start around my brothers and sisters. I was the baby girl, and I had two younger brothers. So of course, the older siblings did not want to listen to the younger siblings. So me and my two younger brothers and the four older sisters and brothers, they didn't care to listen to their younger sisters and brothers. So I can remember talking loud quite often. It was just something that just constantly happened whenever we would having conversations in the household. I never really gave it much thought until now. But now that I'm sitting here reflecting on it, that's where it started at. I didn't even realize that until just now. See how things happen? I'm just getting on this broadcast to talk about this sorry human being, and I'm sitting up here in real time connecting dots that I had never really connected. But that is the root of where my loud talking started. And I never really dwelled on it and really unpacked it. But that's where it started at. Because, I mean, me and my sisters and brothers, we would argue with each other constantly. We constantly argue with each other, and we tried to out-talk the other person. We really did argue. We had knockout, drawn-out arguments that sometimes went to fights. They just went to fights. It's just unbelievable. We will argue for a little bit. We will argue for until we got tired, and then sometimes we just fight. And then we would have to, if we really hurt each other, we got a whooping. We had to get a whooping. When Mom found out about it. Whenever Mom found out about it, we were going to get a whooping. So we got a lot of whoopings. I mean, me and my sisters and brothers, we got a ton of whoopings. I have to tell you, that was one. My mother was one whooping person. She enjoyed whooping us, and we gave her every reason to have to whoop us. I mean, I'm sure she didn't get a lot of pleasure out of it, but it kind of seemed like it when she was doing it that she was. But in all honesty, she didn't get any pleasure out of it. But I know one thing, those whoopings weren't pleasant either. But that's just growing pains. We all had to go through those growing pains. And so now that I'm sitting here talking to you folks, I'm realizing for sure that is where my loud talking started. And then, of course, when I got in the military, it got worse. So between growing up as an adolescent to 18 years old, then going straight into the military 11 days later, and spending a long career, then coming out of the military, and then I'm a quiet person. That's the crazy part. I'm a very, very quiet person. But when I get upset, that's when I get loud. When I really feel upset and passionate about something, then my voice just gets loud. But anyway, I'm going to get to this sorry human being named DJL Beast. He made his space, and his title was The Black Community is Fucked Up. Yes, the black community is fucked up. That part is true. But now, the hard part, folks got to look in that mirror and take accountability. So these folks who are in the young age of 20, 30, 40, I would say that's the range, and maybe some 50-year-olds. But the main age range is between 20, 30, 40, and then some 50-year-olds. Now they're waking up and they're having to face reality. They're finally having to face reality and accountability. And they don't want to do that. That's a weakness. That's a weakness that you got to guard against. If you're not careful, you're going to have to spend every ounce of strength and willpower within yourself to take that accountability and not let that weakness rear its ugly head. I mean, weakness is always there, lurking. I mean, weakness is constantly there every second of the day, waiting to pounce and to rear its ugly head. And so today, for DJL Beast, his little weakness reared its ugly head. And I sat there in his Twitter space, listening anonymously. I was listening anonymously, and I heard quite a few folks come off of their microphone and cry and cry and cry and blame the baby boomers. The baby boomers. Oh, our elders failed us. Our elders failed us. The baby boomers failed us here. They failed us there. They failed us there. It was not only DJ L, but the names, it was another lady by the name of Lion something, and Love I Am, and what other lady did I hear? Let me make sure I try not to miss anyone. Those are the only two lady voices that I can remember. Oh yeah, Jelly is in a whole league of her own. That lady needs to go get psychological help, because I've been listening to her for well over a year, and she's been preaching that tune. She needs psychological help, and I'm being respectful. She definitely needs psychological help, because I ain't never been in a space with that lady that she has pointed the finger back at herself. See, I try to be fair, because that's the way I was raised, and that's the way I hold myself to that standard. I try to be objective. I try to be unbiased. And I've been listening to this lady off and on for well over a year. So this is no knee-jerk observation. This is no knee-jerk observation. But whoever know her, whoever is a friend of her, associate of her, needs to pull her to the side and have a heart-to-heart talk with her. She needs psychological help. And check, C-H-E-C, he needs psychological help. DJ L Beats needs psychological help. Who was the other one? That lady named Lion. Because when you cannot sit down and have a heart-to-heart talk with yourself and point that finger back at yourself before you point it to anyone else, and if you do not have the ability, if you as an individual human being do not have the ability to first point that finger back at yourself before you point it at anyone else, you are already seriously damaged. I mean, I had to go through that myself personally. I personally had to go through that journey. I personally had to go through that journey. That's why I can speak the way I'm speaking. I personally had to take myself through that ringer. I had to drag my little self through that ringer. Fighting tooth and nail, I had to go inch by inch, every little baby step through that ringer of having that heart-to-heart talk with myself and be able to look in that mirror and point that finger back at myself. I had to get up. I had to be able to be strong enough to do that. I could not have a weak backbone. I could not allow my human body to have a weak backbone. I had to stand straight and tall, and I had to look in that mirror and point that finger back at myself. I had to stand there and look in that mirror and point that finger back at myself before I even think about pointing that finger at anyone else. Before I even let that thought even try to enter my thoughts, I had to point that finger back at myself. I didn't hear anyone in that room until later on, as time went on, they gradually got around to saying that part. DJ LB finally got around to saying that he was in the drill music industry, and said out his mouth that he accept blame. But that was hours and hours and hours later. Now, if you had to open your mouth and open your Twitter space and right off the microphone, you had shared that information. If you had opened your Twitter space and the very first words out of your mouth would have been that revelation, if those words would have came out of your mouth right at the beginning, then it would have been more believable. Then I would have been able to evaluate that I'm interacting with a person who's trying their best to operate on an honest perspective. Because I'm going to make that evaluation in split-second evaluation. I'm going to be making it every second that you're talking. Every little second that you're talking, I'm making that split-second evaluation on the spot in real time. Well, I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that come out of DJ LB's mouth until hours later. Hours later. So, but he got the audacity to put in his title that elders are to blame and they are traitors. No, see what we are finally at. We're at that crossroad that each and every one of us more than likely face one day before we leave this world. That you was going to have to wake up and face that accountability. It happens to each and every one of us. And today I hope that all of you folks who were in that room, in that Twitter space, that you walked to a mirror and looked in that mirror and had that heart-to-heart talk with yourself. You're going to feel a lot better. You're going to feel a lot better once you have that heart-to-heart talk with yourself and you're looking in that mirror and you're standing tall with your back straight. And you're going to have to face that. You're going to have to face that person looking back at you in the mirror. You're not going to it's not going to be a whole lot of pleasant feeling going through you. It's probably not going to be a very, very pleasant experience. But you're going to be able to reflect on it as a positive experience. A growth experience, a very, very healthy growth experience that you would not sacrifice for anything. I hope and pray that all those persons who went in that room today are going to take time out of their life and look in that mirror. Otherwise, the self-destruction is going to continue. It's not complicated. The self-destruction is going to continue. I don't care how many conversations you have. I don't care how many Twitter spaces you do. I don't care how many Facebook live broadcasts you do, how many Instagram live broadcasts you do, how many TikTok live broadcasts you do, how many YouTube live broadcasts you do. If each individual person don't stand before that mirror and look at that person looking back at them, if they can't find the courage and the backbone to look in that mirror and point that finger back at that person that's looking at them in the mirror, if they can't do that, if they do not have the willpower and the discipline and the courage and everything else that you want to lump in there, everything else, any other words that you want to lump into that, if you don't find that courage And that backbone, if you don't find a backbone to stand and look in that mirror at that person looking back at you and point that finger, the self-destruction is going to continue. And it's going to be a battle every day of your life. That's the kicker. It's going to be that way every day of your life. You're not going to get a day off. You're not going to get a day off. You are going to deal with that every second of the day. Once that light bulb finally goes off in your head, where you have developed enough to be able to be conscious enough of the environment and the life experiences that you have experienced up to that point, you are going to look in that mirror, and that person looking back at you is going to be yourself. And you are going to have to raise your finger and point that finger at that person in the mirror that's pointing back at you. You're going to raise your finger and you're going to point that finger. It's going to be pointing back at you. And when you finally have the courage and the ability to point that finger back at you, then you finally have rose above that weak backbone where you look around to blame everyone else before you look at that person in the mirror. That's what you're going to have to find the courage to do. It's easy. It's real easy. It's really easy to point the finger at someone else. It's very easy. It's really, really easy to point the finger at someone else. But the measure of your character, is, do you have the backbone to point that finger back at yourself? A lot of you don't. A lot of you don't have that backbone to do that. And so, the bottom line is each and every one of us have played a part in the destruction of where we find ourselves today. From the time we was old enough to understand to a certain degree of what was going on around us, we started taking accountability that very second. Me, my closest memory is somewhere around the second or third grade. I remember going to school, and my second grade classroom was next to my sister, my older sister, who was 4 years older than me. Her classroom was next to mine. And I'll never forget the day that we went outside and played recess. We was let outside to go play to play recess. And when we was outside having recess, we started playing marbles. It was just one of those things that we did during recess. So after recess ended and we went back into the classroom, shortly later, the ambulance showed up. And went to my sister's classroom. A few minutes later, the ambulance was rolling a body out of the classroom. And us little kids that are in the second grade, we are looking out the window. We're looking out the window at the ambulance, and we can see the bed, the ambulance bed, and we can see a body on top of the bed, and we can see the pillows. Maybe I'm not pronouncing the pillows on top of the body. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was about 3 or 4 pillows, 3 or 4 on top of this body as they rolled the ambulance bed back to the ambulance vehicle. All I can remember, I can just see the image flashing in front of my eyes like it was yesterday. So when I got home, my sister told me what happened. My sister told me and my sisters and brothers what happened. Well, it turns out that one of her classmates chased another classmate around the classroom and stabbed him over a marble. Just stabbed him over a marble. So he died. He died over a marble. That's what happened to him. That's what happened to him. And I've never been able to forget it. That's trauma. That's trauma at 7 years old. At 7 years old, I'm traumatized. That's something I can never erase out of my memory. And from that day forward, I have had to carry and live with that trauma. That don't even include my ancestors' trauma of slavery and hangings and lynchings and burnings. I'm starting a whole new generation of trauma that's stacked on top of that other trauma. I'm literally in real time stacking trauma on top of trauma, on top of trauma, on top of trauma, on top of trauma. But I'm still waking up day after day trying to get through the next day and the next day and just be a child. I'm just trying to enjoy being a child. And so life goes on. Life goes on. And you continue to learn. You continue to learn and you continue to grow and develop. And I just remember thinking, my environment is not safe. Aquilin, your environment is not safe. At 7 years old, I had to tell myself, Aquilin, your environment is not safe. It ain't never been right again. It ain't never been right again since that day. Now, do you think I have sat there and stayed stuck in that moment? No. I've tried to rise above it and have the best life that I can. I've done everything possible to try to have the best life that I can. My ups and downs and good, happy moments and sad moments and in between. It's all been there. It's all been there, part of my years of being on this earth. There have been good moments. There have been happy moments. There have been sad moments. There have been ups and downs, all in between. But as I sit here talking to you right now, I can't point that finger at my mother. I cannot point that finger at my mother. I can't point that finger at that father that I never met. I can't point that finger at my mother. I cannot point that finger at that father that I never met. I point that finger at me. I point that finger at me. It took me to grow and to develop to get to that understanding. I didn't get there overnight. I did not get there overnight. I did not get there overnight. It was a growing and development and a journey. It was a growing up and development and journey that I had to travel. And I thank the good Lord And I thank the foundation that my mother gave me, that I was able to take that journey and learn and gather that understanding. I cannot take credit for all of that development and that understanding. I cannot take credit for that all by myself. I cannot try to take credit for that. So me personally, I can only speak for myself. I can only speak for myself. I'm one person. I'm one individual person. I can only speak for one person. But those persons in DJ Beats' room, they were speaking for millions of persons. They didn't hesitate. They did not hesitate. They did not hesitate to try to speak for millions of persons when they pointed that finger and said, well, those elders are to blame. They ain't never met those elders that they are blaming. Many of them they have never met. But they did not hesitate to fit their mouth and blame the elders. And then on top of that, call them a traitor. So, getting back to myself, somewhere along the way, I came to the answer. I wasn't looking for it. I was just growing up and enjoying being a child, enjoying being a teenager. And as you going about your life and you're around your peers from junior high school, elementary, junior high school, you are having all these different conversations, and then you're just constantly starting to sit back and think about those conversations that you're having with each other. And then it's that time for you to walk out into that world. Then that day come when you got to leave all that childhood ways behind. You got to leave them behind. It's time to let go. It's time to let go of those elementary days and those junior high school days and those high school days. And now it's time for you to walk out into that world. You got to stand up and make sure your back is straight. You got to be straight. Your back got to be straight. And you got to walk out into that world. You got to do it. At some point, you're going to have to stand up tall and you're going to have to walk out into that world. And then you're going to learn about a lot of different things that your mother and father tried to prepare you for. You're going to hopefully start learning about a lot of things that your mother and father hopefully prepared you for. Hopefully those elementary and junior high school and high school days prepared you for it. Hopefully those persons in your life, like your aunts and uncles and your community, prepared you for the world in some way, form, or fashion. There's no way to be totally prepared. It's no way humanly possible to be totally prepared. But you're gonna pull from all those lived experience up to that point. You're gonna pull from all of that lived experience from the time you were born into the world until the time you turned 18 and whatever that day came when you walked out into that real world. Well, I walked out into the real world 11 days after graduation. 11. I told the recruiter to send me as soon as possible. I was looking at that calendar. He said, when do you want to go? When do you want to go? I looked at that darn calendar. I said, I'm graduating in June. I want to go as soon as I graduate, as soon as I can. So I picked the very earliest day to leave right after graduation. and it turned out to be 11 days. 11 days. But I was already preparing myself to leave because I joined the military the summer before I started the 12th grade. The summer, I was enjoying my little summer vacation, but I had already gotten permission from my mother to sign the dotted line. She signed the dotted line for me. I could not sign the dotted line. I was still 17 years old. So the recruiter came to my mother's house, and my mother signed the paperwork. So before I started the 12th grade, my thinking had already transitioned.